Hello, everybody. This is Robert again from back from yesterday. I know I said maybe Jared was going to be on today, but you got me. So, um, like I said, I know that the schedule might have changed. If you've been looking at the schedule, the email out, Jared just got pulled into something else. But hopefully, I can give you the answers you need. No problem at all. So, hopefully, no problem. But we'll get started here. I don't know, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, something like that. I'd love to maybe do some learning myself. So if you've got some challenging questions, um, I'm feeling up to the challenge today. So we can crank at it that way. We'll give it about, 60 seconds at this point, maybe. We'll get started. If you have a question, feel free to pre-submit it. I got a couple things I'm going to talk about straight out the gate, but um, like I said, I'm open to some challenges today. Feeling good. So we'll get started here in just a few moments. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started because I'm in the mood to get started. We'll close out of this. Cool. Um, Everyone that's in here, I know everybody in here. You've all heard our spiel about the YouTube channel. I'm not going to show it to you. You've heard our spiel about the decision solution marketplace. For now, I'm not going to show it to you. I might have something I'll show if no one has any questions. See, because I had made a video. Actually, we'll just make a quick connection point. I'll keep it as short as I possibly can here, folks. Just be aware, making a connection here. Decision support channel, decision solutions marketplace. I personally just posted a video last night of one of these accelerators and how it works in decisions. And this is me, Robert, making this video. It's just an easy way to do tasking and workflows. You can make assignable forms, assignable tasks in a linear or non-linear methodology, sequential or parallel tasks without having to use any decisions designers at all. So you don't need to make any forms. You don't need to make any flows. You can just essentially fill out a form and it will make this process for you. So it's just a cool process for, especially if you have non-technical people with reusable tasks and assignments, stuff that you are constantly assigning. This playbook activity manager, which is a part of the decision solutions marketplace, also found in decisions, which I'll show you how to download it if you want. But you make these playbooks like human resources or IT. And again, in human resources, I have a couple built out, new employee onboarding, and it allows you just to really easily launch these forms and make assignments. And again, all this is done outside of decisions designers. So you don't need a ton of experience in decisions. You just fill out a form with what you want the form to contain. So it pops up with a form, you fill that form out, and then it will give you the ability to assign that form in a sequential task or in parallel. So you might notice on here, once we get over here in this area, and again, I'm not going to make you guys watch a 17-minute video, but um, come on, get to the right screen. We have two tasks with the same sequence number, which means it runs those in parallel. It won't go to the next sequence number until it's done. You can add configuration folder activities. So if you want to build out flows and extend it, where if something happens, you go out and build out a process that happens when a certain thing happens. But it's just a really quick and easy way to assign tasks and decisions. Playbook Activity Manager. All right. We talked about YouTube. We talked about Solutions Marketplace. Here's one that we talked about yesterday. If you weren't in here yesterday, I'm not sure, how useful it might be to everyone's use case in here, but it's a really awesome, awesome tool. Um, it's somewhat new, maybe, I don't know, 24 hours old or something. But we have this docbot.decisions.com. I'm not necessarily sure how we would find it from documentation outside of that URL. I'm not sure how live this thing is just yet. Let's see if we can search for it. Okay, so just for now, if you're interested, it's a URL, docbot.decisions.com. If you were in here yesterday, you saw me feed questions into it, and it really kind of got us 80% of the way there. And it's just a really awesome tool. So, it does take about 60 seconds to kind of give you an answer. So it's not a perfect one. Um, but, something along, these lines, like a question that I might have gotten yesterday, if I paste this in, it's not going to let me paste it in right now. Come on, buddy. right? I got this question yesterday because I absorb all the questions. Um, and give it 60 seconds, it'll think through it. But it's a really awesome tool. Docbot.decisions.com. It kind of scrapes our documentation site and makes you a formulated response. It does charting as well. If you want to like, hey, how do I make, a user account with permissions or something like that? We'll feed an easy question here in a moment. But like I said, while we're kind of letting that thing load up, if you have any questions, I'm open to the challenge today. I'm trying to learn something as well. So feel free to hit me with your best shot and we'll see if we can kind of build something on the fly there for you. So again, here's some information there about that for more detailed guidance. But you could, I want to make an account and adjust permissions. Oh, look at that spelling of account right there. Brutal. And it just gives you information. It scrapes documentation for you. So it also scrapes some extra information. So it really is useful. If you were in here yesterday, you saw that maybe more than half of the questions, we got 80% of the way there just by feeding this doc bot. So what questions do you guys have for me? Anything at all? Like I said, I'm open to a challenge. We've got a couple people on this side of the line. Oh, we got one. I love it. Some questions about the playbook module and a softball one about save entities. I love softballs. I could use some softballs. I could use some layups. I'll unmute you, Jim. Feel free to let me know how I can be helpful. A lot of talk. I got you there. Whichever one you want to start with, I can
Cool.
start with either or.
Yeah, I'm really interested in that playbook one. I've downloaded, but I haven't had the time to dig into the code yet.
Sure.
So just some, did you actually write that one or?
Nope. Nope. It's
Okay.
I had nothing to do with it. I think it was built by Jared, do you know who was which team built it at least? Was it a dev
Solutions engineering.
solutions engineering? There you go.
Okay.
Um,
Because it looks very similar to something I'm working on, like an automated workflow engine,
yeah, I'd love to show
where
it to you.
my thoughts were I was going to build behind the scenes all the standard like case entities, records, states, stuff like that. I wanted to be able to do that automatically so folks could enter criteria and stuff like that for approvals or for different states to be executed, whatever. And it would, this engine would know how to execute that and where to go and all that stuff. So
Yeah, I'd love to show that to you. Let's do the save entities one first, the
yeah,
softball stuff.
save entities. This is a stupid question. I probably should know it, but got to save entities, and I can't. I thought save entities when you saved it, if you gave it like a key field, it would do an update basically.
That's a good
Um,
question, man. Let's save entities when
I
you give it
thought
a
it
key.
would work as an update in certain circumstances. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe I misheard that because this goes back. I haven't done this. I haven't tried to use the save entities as an update, but I thought you could if you gave it the right key. But
So
um,
let me think about, do I have any structures on here? I can just use a built-in framework, I guess.
I'm just using an entity structure to try to save it. I think. Yeah, created entity structure.
Am I walking in the right direction there, Jared? Probably a build data and you could feed in which account ID you're having and then just the parameters that you want.
Well, what I would do here, just create a custom data type called employee DB and just
Let's
do it
go.
on a DB level. That would just be easier instead of messing with the entity framework fields of decisions to illustrate this.
Yeah. Cool,
So
man.
you're because mine's on an entity, not a database.
Let's do it.
Is
Okay.
yours an entity data structure, or you're just
Yes,
saying it's a case entity? Because we can do,
It's an entity structure that I'm trying to save data to,
sure, we can do an
and
entity.
I wanted to just update if it's already there.
Yeah, yeah, we can do an entity data structure as well.
Let's go string one. I hate string one actually. We'll just call this fruit and we'll call this mm, kitchen supplies. I just hate everything being called string. Always ends up getting me confused. Um, all right, so let's make a couple quick records here. Create a flow. Try to do this as quickly as I can. Ooh, we compiled. Let's create some records. We said they were what, entities? Yeah. Let's create. I know I could probably do a for each thing, but let's just go ahead and just really quickly here. We're just gonna live in here for now. We're just gonna live in there. Now the big question is, where did I put that flow? That's what happens when you start working too fast. What did I name that flow? Save entities as an update, probably. We're gonna do it in here anyways. Yeah, so we'll make some records and then we'll try and save them. If I get this to load. Sometimes when we got Zoom running and this running, it's just a connection issue, brother. Man, we can't win today. Not a good user experience here, folks. Sorry. Sometimes with the Zoom and the DocBot, and back to DocBot, just so we can follow back up. Look at that. It even drew it out for us. So the processes for making an account and permissions, it's not, like I said, it's not super thorough and it's not the end all be all deterministic and lands on the perfect answer every time. But if you are looking for information, that docbot.decisions.com is going to be a great resource.
That's cool. Is it going to be connected to the documentation site pretty soon? Like a
Yeah, I hope
a
I hope they
button
built it in as a
HTTP?
link. Yeah,
Why
yeah.
not?
I just looked and couldn't find it. I knew that this is brand spanking new, so um, I might have to go into another. I don't
That'll
want
be
to
pretty
restart my
useful.
services here, but maybe it's just that flow.
Yeah, like I'm just gonna run a report that has the primary contact and then I'll have the CSP.
Uh, I don't want to restart my services, but I might have to here, folks. I have another version of decisions, but then we're making another entity and we're backtracking a step or two. Try one more, and then if not, I'm gonna jump over to another iteration I have here. Try one more. Please load for me their toolbox.
Yeah.
Oh well, I'm not gonna let this shake me. Let's go. We'll do another. We'll go to another iteration I got. We'll keep our eye on that in case it loads while we're cranking here. I know I got a lunch and learn. There we go. Create other. We're gonna create data type. We're in 8 this time, which I know doesn't necessarily apply to you because I know you're in 9, but Jim's entity. That's what, right? Root. Meat. Come on. Lunchtime. Um. Here we go. We're back on 9.
I was just using the save entity stuff, not
Yeah,
going into the specific.
I thought you wanted to adjust one though.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was asking. Does save entities allow you to update an entity once it's been saved? Or is it
Yeah, so
just a create?
well, I'm creating them so that I can then try save entities.
Oh, because save entities will save it initially
True,
too.
true.
That's what I was trying. I was doing the save entities and then I was hoping like if I were looping through and I came across the same thing, that I just wanted to update a certain field on it, I could keep the save entities and it would just find that row and
Yeah, let's just
update
make.
it from there.
I believe that is how it works, James, with the
Mhm.
save entities, if you have the same ID, because I think in the data cleanup project, we utilize that paradigm.
Yeah.
I think we're just,
So where would I capture that ID? I guess I'd have to keep track of that and that ID field, right?
yeah, so like when you build the data, you forgot the entity name. When you build the data of that process, you just have to
Right.
make sure that you map in the ID in that field.
So what would the initial ID be? Because when you do the save entities first, it creates that ID, doesn't it?
Well, so if you pass in an object, right? Let's say I have an object of, right, this one. Let's say I have, you know, property one, property two, and ID. And let's say I already have in property one Jared and property two is, um, last name. Then what you would do is, let's say I want to change that last name to actually my actual last name to Rodriguez. Then what you would do is you would say, okay, then I'm going to pass in the entire object into the save entity step, including its ID. So if my ID was one, you would make sure that in that object, when you fetch it, you just utilize that entire object with the ID filled out and then save it. And then it will just update that record.
Okay, so and
There's no like option that when you click on it, it's going to say, oh, would you like an ID? You just have
yeah,
to, in the object, already have that property filled out with the value.
okay, all right. I'll have to figure out how to do that in my case, but I got around it because I really, in my case, I can go ahead and if it's the same thing, I can delete the previous one and resave it, but I don't really want to.
You could also use a change, create, if I'm, maybe I'm, well, no, I guess that wouldn't work in back to the database. I was saying that on some steps, you could probably use a change value as well and parse down. That
Yeah.
would save on certain steps. You could change, output,
Yeah,
find
I've
the
been doing that
record.
a lot for
Yeah.
some things. I think in this particular situation, I was more for my edification because I thought you could do it. I just wasn't able to get it to work
Yeah,
without
let's just see if I
knowing
can.
that idea.
Yeah, apologies on that. I gotta restart my service pretty bad here, huh? So yeah, like I think what Jared was saying is like, what did I call this? Fruit entity kid already working too fast for my brain.
You can go to recent, expand
Yeah.
recent, that'll be faster.
Oh, let's go. Yep. See, we're
And
learning
then
here. Not Tracy's Grocery.
I think it was like update save entities thing or something.
Yeah, you're right. So yeah, you would have to pass in that. Um,
So I'd have to fetch the original row first, and that's just it. I guess I could fetch it based on one of the fields. Yeah.
yeah, you could fetch it there's plenty of them on, I mean, even
Yeah, yeah,
if you
yeah.
know
Yeah. Yeah, I
the,
do. I was just trying to save the fetch because if it's flows running at a totally separate time, I'm not going to know what that ID was. So I'd have to fetch it and then save over it.
Aren't you
yeah.
dealing with the entire object though, or no?
Yeah,
Because like I know in like if it's I don't know if this is your use case, but like if you're in a configuration folder in a user action, you have the extension data and the ID already there in the process, and then you could just map that entire object into the save entity step. If you like in that flow created a change on it, and then you just save that entity.
right. But no, it'd be like I execute the flow one day and then another time I'm going in and executing it again. And so I don't know what that ID is unless I fetch it again, right?
Well, that's the cool thing about the configuration folder step is it's dynamic. So whatever object gets passed into, it's always aware of those unique values. So like take for instance a user action flow. If I right click the row on the report viewer that has Jared, Jeremy, and Robert, if I right click Jeremy, the object will have Jeremy's specifications and run that flow based on Jeremy's data. If I right click another row, Robert, then it's gonna have Robert's values into that flow. So in that case, you wouldn't have to fetch it again because that would be extra work. You'd just be doing an extra unnecessary fetch, if that's your situation.
Yeah, it's with a case entity when I'm the first step on a case or the first, what do you call it, state on a case.
Okay.
If it executes that case entity again, I wanted it to just like update the row that I already created before in another case.
So are you in a trigger flow with this?
Yeah.
So then, yeah, in
Yeah,
that case,
folder
you
ID.
could just you already have the folder ID then available.
But
So
I
you can
have
go ahead.
I have the trigger flow of the entity that I'm trying to update.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah.
what folder ID represents. Anytime you send that folder ID is a placeholder for whatever record you're performing that action on.
But I thought the folder ID of the case was the case entity's folder ID, not the folder ID of this is a separate entity, not the case entity.
Oh, I see what
Like
you're saying.
it's a separate record, or
So it's
what
a
do they call
separate,
it, data
okay, so you
structure.
have loan
Separate
data
data
type and
structure.
then type of loan, right? So type
Yeah,
of loans you're editing. Okay, so I see what
yeah,
you're saying.
So yeah, you
yeah.
want
I'm
to fetch
trying to
it.
find that, if they came back into it again with the um,
Hmm.
same person or the same, it was executing that again, which this probably won't, I thought through that and it probably won't happen, but I just want to know, okay, for case entities, for cases, if I do want to use the save instead of a fetch and save, which seems, redundant if the save does it. I just need to be able to get to that ID field.
Yeah, and out of the fetch entities. I mean, there's numbers
Right.
of ways you could parse
Yeah.
this down, but I just took
Yeah.
the first one with the ID and I just am
Right.
changing fruit to look this changes. And then when I debug, it'll
Right.
go through. And then
Right.
if I take this back to fetch entities
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just send this to
I
the
knew
end.
that I
Okay.
thought that would work there. I think in my case, I'm going to have to do some kind of a fetch on that original entity to see what that ID is. Um, because it's not going to know each time.
Right.
This is a
Yeah.
totally separate structure. I'm just going out saying, storing some data off to the side for that.
Yeah. If it's a totally separate structure, the path of least resistance is going to be to fetch with fetch
Yeah,
criteria to get it
yeah,
down.
that's fine. Okay. Is anybody else popped any questions in?
Nope. I can show you some of that playbook stuff you want.
Cool. I do have one more question for
Let's
that.
do it. I love it.
That popped up through my mind. I was watching a video on and I know we've done it in the training where you've got runtime flows that run
Okay.
that, you select the runtime when you
Hmm.
put a run flow step in there.
Yeah.
The thing, I'm getting a little confused on how that actually works. Could we set up a flow and, um, I think all we need is a flow and I can,
Yeah. I'll set one up. Let me show
it's
you
a
a
run
working one and
flow.
then I'll show you a working one and then I'll set one up for you.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Because I just have some questions on the logistics of that. I
Yeah.
understand the concept. Some of the logistics I have some questions on.
Yeah. So on this one, this is a working example, and I'll gladly build one for you. We have a
Hmm.
truth table which has a bunch of
Right.
so we have a truth table, and in our runtime flows section, like in here, we have all these flows. So like
Yep.
document routing invoice, we have document routing ends in FC5D. If I go back to that main flow, you'll see that we populated that data in this truth table
Yep.
right here.
Yep. Yeah, I'm familiar
And it
with
says, hey, if the document
Python.
comes in has the word, uh, I believe it was resume, and it was
Right.
FC5D. Right here it is
Yep.
FC5D. It'll give this flow ID out.
Right.
Um, it'll give this flow ID out. So
Yep.
we come down here, we go, okay, what is the flow ID as an output? On the runtime, and we're using,
Runtime template.
yeah, we're using this
That's
fire
the
and
stuff
forget.
that wasn't.
Yeah, and then we can map that in to the target ID so that when data comes in, it will know which flow to run. Um, And then
Okay.
this section up here, I believe Jared can confirm, is just if there's no matches. That's what this one up here is.
Okay, good. That was one of my questions. It's like, why do I have to still select a flow?
Yeah, I think this is just for no matches
Huh.
because on our build out, it's saying, hey, there was an
No
error.
Right.
matches. This one. So then
Yeah.
no, that just runs. So I'm not. We have to test that out. I would test that out. That assumption, Robert. I don't know. Basically what it means is you have to have a template flow that has at least an add task step. Like the add task step could be connected to nothing. It just has to exist within that flow. Because what decisions does, it looks at that template and says, okay, I need to expect a add task. I need to expect file data and document ID. So it knows what types of flow that it can run from that list. Like if we added another flow ID that, if we remove the add task step and we added
Uh-huh.
another flow ID that had a task, then decisions wouldn't know what to run. So that's what that means. So basically the template is just a little map for decisions that says, okay, here's are the inputs and outputs you should expect. And this flow and any flow that you call may have an add task or a tasking step inside of it.
Okay, so are you saying then that the given inputs are what's key here?
The
So
given
that the
inputs
other flows
and
will use
outputs.
those
Yeah, given inputs and outputs.
and
So basically,
outputs?
Yeah, so basically what we'll do is you can have a bunch of different types of flows. And let's say some of them will use file data, some of them won't. But on this
Right,
template flow, you'll have all the different permutations of
gotcha,
data types and tasks that you might encounter. So
right,
decisions knows what to expect. If you don't, and then you call it an input that
right,
decisions didn't expect, it will throw an error saying, hey, at runtime could not find this type.
right. That was my question then, because I
Mm.
couldn't figure out how it would know, like if your two different flows you're calling would have different inputs associated with them, how would it know how to do that? And what you're saying is you set up a flow, a template flow that has all the possible inputs that your flows you're going to call could have,
And outputs as well, too.
and outputs,
Yep.
and outputs.
Yep. In this case, our project, we're not expecting any of the flows that we're going to call at runtime to output anything.
Okay,
So that's why ours did not have an output configured.
okay,
But if you do, then you'd have to make sure you configure that
okay,
as well.
okay. So, is that task step necessary? I mean, what is that actually doing?
Yeah. So basically, if any of your flows that you call at runtime, like
Uh-huh.
this flow doesn't have to be connected. Like Robert could disconnect this thing
Right,
and it will still run the dynamic flow. All that this is saying here is let's say you run a flow that has tasking steps inside of it, right?
okay,
Then decisions needs to look at the template and say, okay, I can expect my flows to have that I will call to have add task steps inside of them. If we deleted this step and ran it, what would happen is decisions would throw an error saying, hey, I'm not expecting any to add task steps, and it wouldn't run any of your runtime flows that have task steps. So it's kind of another layer on that map to expect inside of it. Like, hey, this is the data to expect coming in. This is the data to expect coming out. And hey, any of these flows may also have add task steps inside of it.
oh, okay, so is that only if it has an add task step? Is that the only
Exactly.
step you have to worry about?
Yeah, because exactly. So if any
Okay,
of your flows aren't going to be using any pausing via the add task step, you
uh-huh,
can just not have that in there,
right.
and then you could still dynamically call flows.
Yeah, but you still have to have your inputs and outputs, right?
Correct for the
Yeah,
data. Yeah.
right.
hmm
You just wouldn't need the add test step.
Exactly.
Okay, okay, that answers that question. One more question I have relating to flow IDs. I know
hmm
that typically we've I've seen it done with a truth table, and you've got the flow ID in the truth table.
Mhm.
What is there a way you can do that dynamically if you know the flow name? Like if I wanted to make a user list so they could select the flow ID that's going to run, or in a configuration file, I could have a configuration file is where a user selected the flow they want run based on the flow name because they know that, but they're not going to know no flow ID.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Actually, that's actually what we do here. So in this project, we actually allow people to dynamically add new routes. So what we're using here is this isn't a truth table. I mean, it is, but it's at the external
Oh,
truth table.
okay,
So basically, all we do is we point to what we call like a route database. And
right,
anytime someone's like, "Hey, I want to add a new route to FSU submit loan documents or whatever,"
right,
right? And a student clicks that, and let's say
right.
you didn't have that in the route, you can have a flow say, "Oh, add this as a new route," and then run the process. And then next
Okay,
time someone who runs it, it will be in this new route table. So it will dynamically grow instead of
okay.
having someone have to manually like edit the truth table cell, add the ID and stuff.
Okay. And then I could, since that's an actual database table, I could use that as in a configuration. Like if I had a configuration page where they could select which flow they wanted to run, I
hmm
could use that. I could just
Exactly.
say
Yeah.
drop down of all those document file names.
Yep.
hmm
100%.
Gotcha. All right. That makes sense.
Yep. And
Okay.
I think the data type to do that, what we're pulling from the data type here is called the element registration
Mhm.
table, which houses like the designer element, which will tell you like what's its ID, what's the name of it, and then what's its type, right? And
Uh-huh.
so that would be the type you would utilize for that. So it has all that information for it.
What's that table called? Data element table?
Element registration.
Element registration.
Yep.
Cool. Pretty cool. All right. Thanks. Now
Yeah,
we
man.
can talk about that. Playback if no one else has any
Yeah,
questions.
it's just you in here, man. Come on.
Hmm.
I'd love to. I'm gonna just do it, kind of give you a walkthrough of the base of it. So I'm fairly certain I still have this in its out of the box configuration. I think the only thing that I did was move the dashboards into the public folder because it's a version 8 project. They were
Yeah.
out here living in this space. I think that's all I've changed. But we'll go kind of start. So essentially, when you load it up, you'll have some built-in like playbook teams and playbooks. Like you can right click these and just delete them if you want to start your own. I know there's nothing in this because I was just kind of showing that. But we could say, okay, the team name is FSU and the owner's email address is mine. And this is again just Robert dot, geez, can't spell my own name at decisions.com. Love it. So once you make a playbook team, you can select it and it gives you to this new dashboard. Um, so within the team, you'll have playbooks, and then within the playbook, you'll have activities. So it's kind of like this, scaffolded thing. I can add a playbook to the team and say just, new onboarding process in some capacity, right? So again, I haven't really gone into any designers. I haven't made any flows. I haven't made
Yeah.
any forms. And now that I'm in the playbook, and again, if I go back, to your playbook, I think I can add an activity here as well. Yeah, add activity to playbook as well. But I'm just going to kind of go in. And again, all these dashboards just come with it. I can add an activity. So it loads up this form, right?
Yeah.
Again, we're still not in any designers. And I could say, who's responsible for it, right? What is the activity name? Send email, assignment type. The sequence numbers again start at 1. If you
Yeah.
have multiple sequence numbers that are the same, so you make 2 of 3 of them sequence number 4, it will not go on to sequence number 5 until all of number 4 have been completed. So it kind of allows you to run those in parallel. Just for now, for simplicity, I'm going to say this is assigned to administrator. We'll make it all users so it pops up on my screen. You can require comments. And then we have these forms that build out. So based on which one of these I click, a checklist, a file upload, a contact information, what to say, gather contact. Change this a little bit. Gather contact, we can require it. And you can add this assignment type just for your formatting on your reporting. We could say this is initial contact information, and we'll say gather information, please. We'll just add one more here. So as we go through, again, this just didn't refresh because my thing is running a little slow. Add activity playbook again. We'll say this is sequence number 2. We'll call this, what do we want to call this? Something here. Create internal back end logins. And here's where some of the strength comes in. We can go checklist and we'll say create email, create Slack, create, rippling or whatever the thing is. Please check boxes. We'll make for this one comments required, not that it really matters, but responsible group. Again, we'll just do all users so it pops up on my screen and I don't got to do a bunch of logging and logging out. But here's the kind of strength of this.
Yes, I noticed that.
FSU backend state after completion, right?
Right.
So FSU capital backend. We'll say assignment type is in backend or something like that. Okay. So we have these 2 in here, 1 and 2. They'll show up here as well. From either this screen, we can launch it by right-clicking and launching it, or if we go into this additional, we can launch it from up here. But as I launch this, let me show you that advanced thing. So if I go into the configuration folder and add a state called FSU backend and add an activity like a trigger flow,
Yeah.
call this trigger flow.
Yeah, this will pop
Just,
up or something.
yeah, exactly. Show a pop-up. I love the center pop-up. I hate the side pop-up.
Yeah. Me too.
Right. And now when I go back to that playbook team, oh, and you have access to all that data. like this is from the video, but like if I wanted to, I could go through and just like look at, the data that's associated with each task and all
Yeah,
that.
so this is creating case entities behind the
It
scenes,
is
right?
100% nailed it. Yep.
So it's dynamically creating case entities, and is it dynamically creating those initial states? Or I
Yeah. So
noticed when you create a case entity, you already get started and completed or something
yeah,
like
these
that.
two will come. I made all of these.
Manually, or did the other
No,
process,
you
did the
manually do
playbook
it.
process?
You manually do it.
Okay,
Because you might not want anything in there, and then not just that, but if you have 10 playbook teams that each have 10 playbooks in them
sure.
that each have 10 activities, this thing would have 100,000,
Yeah, yeah,
whatever the compounding of those numbers are.
yeah,
And it would be a brutal. It would
yeah.
be a brutal. And I'm
Okay.
sure you could, to be fair, if you wanted to do some build out, like, you have a more structured understanding, you could go through and probably create that state in here. Like if you
Yeah.
wanted it to work that way, it could be the back end, the
Yeah,
plumbing can
like
be.
if you're building these out and you know all these tasks are very, this is what you do. Like for each one of those tasks, these are the states it has to go through. You could build all that out with this, it looks like. I mean, you'd have to write the logic to do it, to add those extra states, but
Yeah, but I messed with the logic. It's pretty linear. It looks confusing when you first open it, but it does make sense once you kind of do some clicking around. It's one of those
yeah, yeah. I'm really
onboarding.
curious to see the logic behind actually creating the cases dynamically. I haven't done that yet.
So I launched a playbook by right clicking, and notice on here I can like I'll complete the task, and it just gives me all this contact information. Oh, I did. So I did make one change to the form just to show that you could. Um, but again, I didn't make this form. It just came in, and I didn't in the design in the making of this playbook. Um, I didn't do anything with it. So now it'll pop up to the next one. This form back in logins have been assigned to you. Complete the task. I think I made comments required. Oh, comments required. Did it. And then the show pop-up will pop up right here in the middle. So it hits that
Yeah,
configuration flow.
right. Yeah.
Um, so I'm not sure
Okay.
what we froze up on there, but um, and again, in here, I have that new process onboarding for Jared, where I can, take a look at the information. The plumbing on the back end. I know we do have one more question in the chat, which I'm gonna jump over to right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, even if you don't want to use the playbook activity manager, but you just want to say like, hey, how are things constructed? Like
That's what I'm
it's
going to be using it
yeah, you can
because
just look at this and kind of reverse
yeah, it's
engineer it.
it's really cool and it's very similar to something I'm looking to build anyway. So I
Yeah,
think this is going to be a really good thing to go through and see how y'all did that.
yeah, and I made some changes in here on how this is named. I think in this section, I think I changed this. Just to make it a little more cleaner. But yeah, it's just like all these accelerators are really great for just looking at how they're built.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure you've probably seen it, but for those of you that don't know, if you just go from your Project Hub in version 9, App Store's on the top right, just an install, like a 2-click install, details and then install. So there's
Yeah.
that. Let's look at some of these questions we got in the chat. And thank
Right.
you guys all for your patience on
Thanks,
all
man.
that. Yeah, no problem, man. I appreciate the questions. It's been fun. All right, so we did this. We did that already. All right, done. All right, let's go. So Shanke, oh, welcome back. Let's go to that chat. So I need to update a table in a day. Let me read here. And I'll unmute you just so we can chat it out while we're doing this. If I can find my participants list, a lot of talk. I need to update a table in a database, and my team member told me I can use fetch entity step to get the data first and then update it. This is really similar to what we did on the front end, it looks like. And in the fetch entities, it is asked for the type name, but I didn't find the place to create a simple data structure linked to a table. I'm on Decisions version 9. Could you show me how to create a database structure for a step fetch entities to get data from a database table? So I have you unmuted. I'm assuming that table, just by the wording of your question, is not a database structure that lives in decisions. It's something external. Is that correct?
Yes, it is the external one.
Okay.
It's the Oracle database.
Okay. So let me think about where I have one of those already built out. I don't think I have any databases set up on this particular instance. Oh, I do have something, but Lord knows what is in that. Let's jump over to another instance in which I know we have it. And let's figure out what the name of that table is. Is it TryDB? Let's go with address master data. JL address master data. All right. And one of these days, I'm going to clear this out, and it might be today. Might be today. I nuke the lunch and learn folder. Let's go with update external table. I can almost certainly remember that. All right, so we are trying to, let me reread the question. Update a table in a database, and my team member told me I can use fetch entity step to get the data first and then update it. I don't think you're going to be able to do that. I'll confirm that for you at the very least. But just because we can, because we're having fun with it, we're going to let DocBot think about it too. See if it can beat me to the solution. Fetch entities. Hopefully we get some load in here. I think you're right that you're not going to be able to type in. Yeah, it's not going to be able to fetch that. Let's see if we can get to it through some weird folder structure, but I really don't think so. Yeah, it's only going to give you framework, decisions framework stuff in decisions folders themselves.
If it's an external database, you go
Right.
to your user defined stuff down there. And that's where that's
I was thinking it was going to be
oh, and
in,
it is. It's in yeah,
it's just figuring out.
integration databases. Like when I create queries, that's
Yeah.
where they go.
So here's JL master data. That's starting transaction. That's not what we want.
So what you could do is write a query that creates the data and call that query. I mean, that's one way of doing it. Or create the query on our database and you create the view on our database and call the view, whatever it does.
Yeah, so I think I hear what you're saying. Um, I could be wrong about this, and Jared or whoever, feel free to give me a little bit of a nudge here. But I think when you have a database connection, you might have to add a method to the service to do that in a really kind of smooth capacity. Um, let me see if I can ever get this to load. But
So you have to
um,
tell the table, the method is a REST service, so that's a different context. Here, you have
okay,
to go back to the flow, you have to go to integration.
all right, let's do it together. All right, I know I said I was going to remember it, but I already forgot
You can
it.
just
There
pick
it
any
is.
flow, it won't matter. Because in the category here, it's integration, database,
Yeah, this is where we were looking earlier.
and then JL.
Yeah, it's only giving me commit, start, and rollback.
And then no, but then go around DBO address data. Like, see, that's a
Ooh,
category there. And
yeah,
once
I
you
missed
expand
it.
that, now you can do bulk insert,
Oh,
insert update, selective update. It's
Yeah,
exactly what James is talking about. It's just the flow
yeah,
step for the query that updates it.
yeah. And that assumes she has access to that via her user ID on that database.
Exactly. Whatever you connect for this, you have to make sure that the service account you're using to talk to that database has the correct permissions to write and update records on that table. So you'd have to talk with your what is it, ops team or your database administrator.
does that land with you? Can we explain that anymore?
Yes, this is get all the record.
Yeah,
And
so it's under as we kind of said, integration, database, the name of the database, and then the DBO address data table. But I think what Jared was
Okay.
trying to say is that unless you have permission to write back to that table, you're going to run into some issues, and that's something on like the ops end of your organization. So wherever that table is stored, whether it be SQL, Postgres, any of that stuff like that, you'll have to make sure that
Yes.
you have permissions to write back to it from decisions, because decisions can write into decisions, no problem, but I can't just pull data and then write back, because
But
I
the
could
yeah,
go
but the
ahead.
insert step here, insert a database, that's the step that actually writes a record to the database. Right, so you have the insert right there, insert to DB. So that allows you to write a record, and you can insert a list of objects into it.
Right, as long as you have permissions, right?
Correct, yeah. I just want
Yeah.
to make sure we highlighted, this is the step to do it. The other one is get all, this is the actual step where you can say, hey, I have this object, save it into that data table.
Yeah, because you
And
could
like,
hype. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and like, if it does fail, you'll know because it will go down the fail path and say, hey, you don't have permissions to read to this table or to write to this table.
Hmm.
And then you can show that error to your ops admin and say, hey, I need permissions to write to that table.
Yeah, because you could hypothetically pull information from like a Google database table if they have that type of connection. Doesn't mean Google's going to let you write back to it. Like,
Yeah, I have the right to insert, so at least I'm assume I have the right to update it. But I only plan to update a few records, not the whole things. So I try to use that steps, that integrated steps is a update. Yes. But it's asking input as the asking for ID. So I'm assume I need to get something.
yeah, fetch it in some capacity. What would we use to fetch that stuff, Jared? Probably a get
Well,
all.
Yeah.
that would come. Yeah. I mean, you could use a get all, but I presume that the data, when you manipulate that object, you should have the ID property already filled out, right? So if you build data on the update DBO, just build array, build data, Robert, and then click off, click back on, and then build data. Right, like this will give you access to the ID properly specifically if you know what that ID for that in our case is the account code. And so what you would do if you want to update is you have to make sure you pass in the primary key of that database into it so it knows what to update. If you leave that as ignore, it will error out because it doesn't know what record to update. So that knowledge you would have to you'd have to know what the primary key of that table is to know for updating.
Okay, so it is not like I fetch the data um, in certain I mean selected some of the data out.
Mhm.
Then I get some list of objects and update that list. Then put update back.
You can do that. So you can utilize this, a fetch entities, a get all step. That could do that. You can do that if you'd want. Basically, that error, if you're getting like ID is null and it can't, update it, that just means that the ID property that was designated on this integration was left blank.
Yeah, here the limit count.
Mhm.
Um, how much what I need to fill it up? This is another question. I try to use get all the
How
so
do
that
well,
input.
mhm.
For example, if it is get all, then I put the limit count that for 100. That means I have 1,000, but I didn't get everything.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah.
That's what it does.
Hmm.
Right? If I have 1,000 records and I say I have a limit of 400, it's gonna send. It's basically like the select top 400 uh query. It just selects you the 400 of those records instead of the thousands of the
Okay,
records.
yeah. But if the data I want to update it is not in the top 400, is
Sure.
then then
You could use a rule to figure out which one you
Can
wanted.
you? So you
Sure.
can grab a fetch entities. Can Robert grab a fetch entity step and then just select that DBO address, the JL address master data. You don't need to connect it to the get all.
Man, I'm crushing here, boys. Uh, Sorry, folks. This is a bad internet day here in the first end. Mm. All right, so
What
we're
you
gonna
can do, yeah, just grab fetch entities, don't connect it to anything.
bad spelling.
And then just JL, whatever that type was.
I don't think we could search for it. I tried that earlier.
Are you sure? I think you
That's
can.
yeah, I searched for it earlier and couldn't find it. That's why I thought we had to go through those steps.
I don't believe so. Well, like, so go to it. So go to the get all.
Get all.
Yeah, you get all from dbo.address data. The
Oh,
step,
go to
get
the
all
step.
from,
Okay,
yeah,
sorry. Yeah.
yeah, because we need to find the data type. So it's JL underscore. Yeah, so basically like copy that. I would just copy that entire thing, see if you can find it. Okay, go to copy the entire thing. And then, yeah, copy that and then paste that in fetch entities. I'm curious to see if I find it. Okay, so it won't find it. Okay. So
Yeah.
then basically then the question is you just want to filter based on a certain set. And you can do that. So what we can do here, go back into those steps.
Mhm.
Get all exists, give you, let's see what we have here, selective update. So what you can do here is you can run, we have two options. We can create a query integration where you can define a query that you want and say, hey, I want to select from, and then a where clause, and that could be a variable. Or you can run the defined query. See that step right there, run defined query? To the left,
Yeah. Run defined query.
all the way
Uh,
left, down,
sorry. No. Oh, yep. There.
drag it on over. Yeah, and so then you can say, hey, I want to grab, and then you can pick your defined query that you've created, and then you can run it that. There's also a raw SQL step. I think there's a space, just type raw. That you can run, and that allows you to say, okay, we can utilize, go all the way to the right.
Back in the world, but
Just click on it, immediately go to the right. You don't have to worry about fixing anything. So on the properties of this raw SQL step, we have this SQL command that you can run. And then on the current connection setting right there, you can change it to be your external database connection. And then that allows you to fetch the data based on a filter because you can write that select from where clause there. I think that will get you to where you're looking for. Does that help, Shan?
Yes. Is it what is returned from the query? It will automatically create it a
Mhm.
data structure.
Good question. So on the output, so if you click on the raw SQL step again, you can actually define what the type would be. So click on return data. And so now when you click back on it, it will allow you to select that type. And I believe you can select, go ahead and, I don't know, still have it on select type. Yeah, output type, and then select the table integration. I believe we can do it now.
nope.
Does it not allow you to? So we do that. Do we create a? So by default, we would create. You can get it by data rows.
Is it have to create it a query first, then type will be generated.
That would work if you do create a flow. Like you can create a flow structure just to get the data in a formatable way, right? Flow structures is a data type that's not saved in decisions. And when you create that, you can set the output of the raw SQL step to be that. And it's just going to be of all the properties of that kind of query integration connection. So
Okay.
the way I would recommend is if you go to our documentation, let me see if I can get this document. There's a query integration and it shows you how to create a query integration. Query integration. Not query editor. There we go. Add parameterized queries. I got it. This is a version 8. I'm going to put this in the chat. And what this will do is it will show you how to write a parameterized query so that you just have an input to it from the database. So that's the exact same thing that Robert's showing I have in the chat.
Thank you.
Just be careful what type of database you're connecting to. Those parameters can look different in your SQL that you write. Like
Yep.
for Oracle, you have to use a colon. For MS SQL, you have to use an
Can you scroll up,
@.
Robert?
Mhm.
We actually have that right there. Boom, up. So different
Yeah, there you go.
databases to
Pay
what James
attention
is
to
talking
that.
about. Yeah, you'd have to know what that variable syntax is.
Got it.
Cool. Any other final questions? Anything else we can bring clarity to in these last couple minutes? This has been a great one. I've actually learned a lot, which is always enjoyable for me. So, anybody got any final questions? All right. Yeah, go ahead, man.
Just
Go, Jim.
real quick, Jared, that table I was playing around with that element registration table.
Mhm.
Is that the table I could find the flow IDs off of if I needed to based on the flow name?
Yes.
Okay, I'm having a problem determining what field holds the flow name.
Yes. We like to use this keyword here for like every native structure and decisions, entity name.
Okay,
So what you would look for is entity name. And so if we could filter this out, Robert, to like by the folder ID to something, yeah, just do like a for folder, a folder in folder filter. So like expand that as a category.
Okay.
So go into that category and then just say for folder. And then select folder all the way to the right. Let's just pick one. Go ahead and grab, let's see. I don't know what any of these things are. What's
Yeah,
something that
no
just
one.
has a little bit? Not the configuration folder. I don't think that would be good.
Uh,
Scrub test.
yeah. Yeah, we need a
Boom,
Persian.
right? So now we have a, and then go ahead and add the type, Robert, because we don't know what that means. So you can go ahead and add, there's
Entity type, probably.
I think it's entity type. There's called entity short type. Grab the behavior type. Element registration type name, you're right. Grab that. So now we know, okay, one's a report, two's a
okay,
report, and one's a flow, right? So now you can easily distinguish between the two. And then the ID field for the element registration table is the component registration ID.
component, okay.
Yeah, it's called component registration ID is the actual ID field.
And for like case entities, that would be the entity folder ID in that case. Is that the main ID for whatever it is?
Are you talking about the flow or?
I'm talking about any, because this looks like it lists every single like you wouldn't data structures be in here too?
Data structures, go ahead and create a data structure real quick. I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Okay, no problem. I'll play
Where
around. Now I know the fields I'm looking for. I can
in test
play around with
probably
that.
created.
Yeah, wherever you're reporting over that. Yeah. Yeah, I would test that out. And then if you have further questions, come back. Because I
Yeah,
don't think so, but I think once we get more clarity on what you're building,
yeah,
we can probably advise that way. Because there's another data source called the entity data source,
yeah.
which pulls from the entity header data. That one's a little scary to pull from, so that's why we don't encourage users to pull from entity header data unless it's
Mhm.
just reviewing.
Right. Okay,
So
okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm trying to get really familiar with your meta tables so that I have a
yeah,
better understanding of that, how things are built and stuff. And because I do know we're going to have use cases where I'll need to build some dynamic, um, like this, dynamically create flows and then, have the flow ID showing and then create that on the fly. So things like that
exactly. Yeah.
in the future.
It does not.
Yeah, I didn't think it would. Yeah,
Okay,
the entity
okay,
header data I think would show that.
okay.
Yeah, but I'm not sure what use case you would need to know the data type of it. And so, but you probably could give more insight on that.
Yeah, I'm just playing around right now. Okay.
Okay,
This gives me plenty to go off of for now.
cool.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you guys very much. It's been a super informative, very very fun one. So I appreciate all you guys for joining. We're going to be back at it next week, same time, same place. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to training@decisions.com or support decisions.com. Either or, depending on what you need help with. So thank you guys very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.